Hello, hello. I am live. Okay. We are talking about chapter 3 of Women Who Run with the Wolves today. Okay. So exciting. I think that when I would nose through the book when I first got it years and years and years ago, this was probably one of the stories that stood out the most. So it's pretty exciting that I can finally, that I had the opportunity now to like deep dive in it and stuff. So should be interesting. And give a couple of seconds to let people who want to come in, and then I'll get started on telling you my thoughts. And I know a couple of other peoples are live right now that I was watching beforehand. So I don't know, might not have a lot of people in the stream right today, but that's okay. It's okay. You can always watch it back later. So I got my notes set out. Got the book. I really only highlighted a couple of things in here. Maybe not to necessarily read out loud, but just highlighting like the important parts, I guess. And really, I kind of took notes as like stream of consciousness with this chapter instead of taking really in-depth notes, even though I felt like I did a deep dive. So it's cool because one thing to note in reading this or in beginning this chapter was that it's called Nosing Out the Facts, the Retrieval of Intuition as Initiation. And I thought, okay, well, chapter 2, we had Bluebeard, right? And we had this like psychic attack, these psychic attacks that we have to bring out a archetypal army, if you will. And then I thought about the next step. So it's like once we're reading this, we keep going backwards while we're reading chapter and chapter and chapter. Like, okay, we needed an archetypal army, mental army in chapter 2. How do we do that? You know? And so we're kind of working backwards as we read forward. It's kind of the impression I'm getting with this book, which I guess if you don't know that, it can be confusing. So anyway, the retrieval of intuition is the name of this. And I thought, okay, well, using the story of the Baltic story of Vasilisa and Baba Yaga, I kind of want it to touch on a little bit about how it relates to the other chapters. And what I've kind of condensed it to is we are using the story, okay, because we know that ST breaks down story as metaphors for helping us with all these steps. And so I think that after Bluebeard, and you have to have this, you know, when you get psychic attacks, you kind of wake yourself up to realize, okay, I need this archetypal mental army to fight off psychic attacks, but I can't do that unless I have some sort of initiatory relationship with intuition. So like I said, I feel like we're going backwards. We're weaving a story, okay, which is interesting when you think about Baba Yaga, okay. I love that it begins once, what does it say? Once there was and once there was not. So it's kind of like the initiation is, I guess you could say, the intuition is liminal. I think, initiation in a total sense is a liminal thing, and so I guess that's okay. We'll start there. That it's kind of a liminal space that there was and then there wasn't, and we don't really know. But it's the trick going through the story, breaking it down. That's the trick to get out of the liminality. So that was pretty cool. So anyway, let me go over what the story is. Now we have Vasilisa, and I don't know if that's how you actually pronounce that. I just call her Vasilisa. So you have Vasilisa, who is, for all intents and purposes, a young girl, okay, and her mother dies in the beginning. You know, she's really sad, and her dad grieve, and blah, blah, blah. Kind of like the beginning of Cinderella. All right. The whole story has very Cinderella-esque vibes. Probably one of the oldest tellings of this, if I'm not mistaken. So you have this young girl, her mom dies, they grieve for a little while, and then her dad remarries this ugly stepmother, or the mean stepmother with already existing mean stepsisters now. And so they live a life, blah, 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 blah. They essentially turn Vasilisa into their slave because they do not like her. Not that this mentions it, but I believe that they are ugly to her because there are a lot of raw emotions are surrounding stepmother and stepsisters and Vasilisa, around jealousy, around, the jealousy around, the dad loving you better, the dad having a better relationship with you. Or it could be that they don't like her pure of spirit. They don't like that she's pure of spirit, pure of heart. They don't like that because it's implied, I believe, that the step family has some kind of I won't call it evil, but more manipulative way of dealing with their lives. And so I guess that that's why they harbor such animosity towards her. But we really, I mean, it's whatever reason you could put down, that's probably a reason. So anyway, finally, there's a problem. They lost their light. They lost their fire. Okay, this is very hearth-centered, very home-centered, right? And Vasilisa, being the slave, or being the, essentially, being the martyr of the family, they've lost their sense of home. Now, the step family blames Vasilisa for this, and they tell her in a manipulative, vindictive kind of way, go seek out Baba Yaga, and she will give you some fire, some coal, and we can have the home again, right? Now, Vasilisa wants this because as a pure of heart, she's thinking, okay, well, if I do this, if I trek off to Baba Yaga and come back with fire, we'll be a family, a proper family that doesn't hold any more animosity, right? This, again, very like the sister in chapter 2, or it's still the sister, still a sister thing, okay? There's a very innocent and naive spirit to her that believes that there's some good in everyone. And I thought that was interesting because we see that in chapter 2. We see that in a lot of the Cinderella retellings, or tellings, not retellings, tellings of Cinderella. And then it ends. No, let me get back to the story. Why did I shift all the way back to the end? So she treks through the wood, through the forest, okay, and encounters things throughout the wood. The knights, I'll call them the knights on horses, the dawn, night, day, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Encounters them, is wondering, is confused, blah, 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 blah. And then gets to this glow in the woods that is Baba Yaga's domain. Okay. And actually, let me back up a second because I forgot the darn doll. In the beginning, when the mother dies, her mother gives her a doll, which is, at first you're like, okay, it's a doll. It's a puppet, if you will, of what I would like to call the mother's essence, the mother's, like, almost like this legacy of, you'll have these and this things because I give them to you in terms of a hereditary trait. So that's what the doll represents. It's more of a puppet, not necessarily a toy. And in this, it becomes a talisman for Vasilisa's intuition. And so when she has the doll, okay, she has to feed it, she has to nurture it, right? It's the same thing with any relationship. We're personifying the relationship that you have with certain emotions. I think that's what the doll represents. So anyway, she's got the doll in her pocket when she treks off to Baba Yaga, and through the woods, she's asking the doll how to get here, how to get there, how to get here. Do I go left? Do I go right? Blah, blah, blah. And she really listens to the doll. So there's that. She has that doll, and she's listening to the doll's intuition, which essentially I believe is the mother's intuition. It's a hereditary trait. The apron strings are still, she's still very tethered, right? And so she is listening to the doll as part of trying to keep her mother in her head. Okay, I got to keep my mom in my head. I got to keep, what would my mom do? That's what this is. That's what the doll represents, I guess, in a very, very abstract way. So the doll leads her through the woods to Baba Yaga, right? When she gets there, her and the doll, they come upon Baba Yaga, this fearsome. Okay, now if you don't know anything about Baba Yaga, she lives in this hut on chicken legs that dances around the yard, and she has the ability to fly across the wood and anywhere through her, not a broom, but a mortar and pestle. And her domain, like where she actually lives in the forest, I envision this to be the deepest, darkest part of the wood. Where she lives, there's a fence with skulls on it, okay, that surrounds her domain. And anyway, she comes, she kind of has a conversation with Baba Yaga, and Baba Yaga gives her tasks, seemingly impossible tasks. And anyway, with the help of her doll, and sometimes the doll does it for her, the tasks get done, much to Baba Yaga's dismay. And so with that being said, at the end of doing all these tasks, and I will get into some of that in a little while. In doing all these tasks, Baba Yaga finally says, okay, you know what? You did what you had to do. You did the task I set. So you know what? Here's a skull with some fire in it. Take it back to your house, because that's what you came for anyway. And gives her what she thinks she needs to make this family, right? Now, Baba Yaga knows, she's the one who knows, like the Kesebe, okay? She knows that the family's not good. She knows that her step family's not good. She knows that bringing this fire back will not make them a family. She also knows things and asks Vasilisa if she would like to know things as well. And Vasilisa's like, you know what? No, your advice stands. If I know too much, I'm not going to learn it myself. That's the rub, okay? When you are curious, there's a curious nature. Again, pop back to chapter 2. There's a curious nature to her. But there's a fine line between curiosity that's beneficial and curiosity that will, in Baba Yaga's words, age you too fast. And so there's something to be said about age-appropriate wisdom, age-appropriate curiosity that won't aid Vasilisa, because it's like, if I tell you how to do this, that's better than me telling you the answer. That's kind of what I got from that. So anyway, she goes back, and then there's an abrupt end to the story. Abrupt end. She goes back home. She has the skull. She's a little scared of it still, but she goes back home, and then all of a sudden the skull, being the intuition / Baba Yaga's wisdom, okay, I believe, the fire, the passion of Baba Yaga that lives in this skull thing, skull stake, it ends up burning the step family to a crisp. House, everything. Just burning it all to a crisp. So now Estes, I liked that Estes explained that fairy tales tend to have abrupt ends, because if you ever thought about storytelling in any kind of a sense, even if you thought back to like circle time when you were a child, you would sit in a circle, the teacher or some adult figure would be telling you a story, and you get so wrapped up in the story that you need something needs to happen to where it's like, bam, okay, we're back in the real world now. I think the first time I realized this, I was in 3rd grade. Okay, first time this ever happened to me. What is this? Sorry, I got distracted. The first time I really felt this, I was in 3rd grade, and we were reading Tuck Everlasting. Okay? For my 30-year-old brain, that was just a very good story to really focus in on. I really focused in. And every day when we would have circle time, I would literally zone out to the fact that I really needed I would have needed this abrupt cliffhanger, if you will, for lack of a better term, to hoist me back into reality. And I had a fantastic parapro that did this for us, that kind of left us hanging, for the next day. She really knew how to do that. I guess after years of doing it, she realized this is a good chapter to really cliffhang you guys so you come back tomorrow and want to read more. So that was the first time I ever really felt this. And I think that's why stories have an end. And I'm glad she mentions that in the book. So anyway, okay. Now, Estes, after talking about the story, okay, blah, 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 she tells the story. She breaks the story down into tasks, 9 tasks. And I believe what this is put a bookmark there. What this is an initiation. Most initiations of any variety have some sort of task laid out for you that start where you're at and then move you to the initiation. And that steps aid us in forming a plan, forming a relationship to whatever it is we're trying to get initiated into. So I like how she broke the story down, or parts, or main characters, or characters in general, broke them down into tasks and what they may symbolize. So I hope that I got all of that story in there right. Okay. Like in a clear way that when we're mapping out the tasks, it'll make sense. Okay. But anyway, so first task, allowing the good mother to die. So like I said, in the beginning of the story, the mother, Vasilisa's mom, dies. And she calls it, Estes, the too good mother. And I have some thoughts on this, okay? Because I think what this means, just like the mom with the doll, hereditary traits, the mom kind of dying as a symbolism of you have to rely on self. If you have a mom, okay, and I know a lot of somethings about this. If you have a mom that does not want you to grow up, that will tell you that she trusts you, will tell you that you know lots of things, you're very wise for your age, tells you all this, but then does things, may say or do things that would imply she doesn't trust you as an adult, that would imply, let me do it for you, let me do it for you, please let me do it for you. This kind of shadow aspect of the caregiver archetype. That's the too good mother. The one that's kind of smothering, the one that's kind of really good because she continues to want to cook for you and want to do things for you. And you can become complacent to that. She can become your crutch for why you're not dealing with things your way in life. I'm not going to go into it, but I know a lot of somethings about this. Okay. So this was teaching me a lot about my relationship to my own parental figures. Okay. Anyway, the mom, ST says that the mother represents safeguarding of the psyche. We hold our mom still to this day. Some things that I would make decisions on or whatever, I would think, wow, my mom just was in my head just then, telling me this, this, and this. Whoo! You got your mom in your head. My husband tells me that all the time. He's like, you got your mom in your head. So, and it's because some people, and especially in an outward setting where someone's looking at you and they're like, that's not you. That's not what you would say. That's not what you would have done in that situation. Who else are you relying on in your psyche? Usually it's the mom figure, the one that wants to do the tasks for you. And so I thought that was really good for me to think about those things. Okay. Now it says that this is the death here, the too good mother, when she dies, is a metaphorical death. This is a continuous awakening and ability to work out the muscle. We must work out the muscle. But if we don't work the muscle, because we're letting the mom do the work, the mom archetype in our psyche, we're letting the mom do the work, we're not working out our own muscle in terms of intuition. So again, it's a metaphor. We have to let the mother die. And this, like I said, this is a metaphorical death. All right. So it's a symbol. So letting the mother dies, letting the mom die, the mother archetype die in the psyche. It's a slow death. It's a slow burning death. But letting the mom die means we're killing off those parts of our psyche that are running on someone else's instincts. When we do certain things in life, we're not running off of our own intuition, our own instincts. Again, your mom in your head, your dad in your head, your parental, your guardian in your head. This person did this person did that. And you're running off of their instincts. When we're talking about a family unit, that is crucial in growing up. You need to be able to rely on your parents or your guardians for their intuition, okay, for safety, until you grow a relationship with your intuition, with your own instincts, with your own ambitions and drives, the way in which you deal with problems in your adolescence and possibly even your teenage years. Throughout growing up, you're relying on their instincts because you have to trust them as your guardians. But there comes a crucial liminal time in your life where you have to start, not all the way, okay? No, we have to start letting those other people's instincts die. And you have to do things. You have to get scared. You have to be put, sometimes you're faced with certain situations that you're like, okay, I need to call my mom right away, or I need to call so-and-so right away because I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this. And instead of relying on, what would you do? What would I do? What do I think is best? You have to wake those instincts up within you. But if you have a too good mother that won't let you, that's a problem. And you've got to let that die. You've got to let those parts of your psyche die. And I think that when we're talking about the too good, she puts this in quotes, the too good mother is overprotectiveness. We can do this to ourselves. Okay, I think is overprotectiveness when you're too safe. You're in a comfort zone, right? You're in a comfort zone. You're not relying on, you're not putting yourself in situations that will actually work the muscle of intuition out. You're not figuring out what you would do if this happened, if this happened, if this happened. You're still relying on someone else's instincts because you would prefer, all of us would probably prefer to be safe, to stay in a comfort zone, to be protected in a way that won't let us mess up and make mistakes. I wrote down all the instincts that prevent us from holding our head up high with knowing. So when we know things, we do things. This is a knowing and then an act, okay? And we'll get that in further tasks. She talked about wolf mothers in this task, about how there's a lot of play when they're pups. The wolf mother. There's a lot of play. There's a lot of, again, the pups rely on the mother's instincts and intuition to know that they are safe. They intrinsically know that they're safe because they're trusting the mother wolf. Okay. But then when it comes time for her to teach, then she kind of teaches them how to hunt, how to track, okay? She teaches them all that. And then she teaches them what's necessary throughout this time in the pup's life. But then what she must do and what they do is when it comes time for the mom to know, I need to know that you are capable of this without me. And she gets harsh with the pups. She holds them down and slaps them around with her paw and sends them, knowing the risks. How there's no sadness when she says, Go out and do it. You need to go out and try it. Of course, human mothers are mostly sad about stuff like that. We harbor this sadness, like, oh, we don't want them to go out and make mistakes, and there's a lot of sadness with it. Okay. Wolf mothers do not hold this. They're like, look, I know the risks. I know that there are predators about. I know that it takes this, and this to hunt and to find prey and to eat, okay, and survive. I know the risks, but I'm going to send you out and do it anyway. I'm going to send you right into the danger zone so that you know, so that you can grow your own instincts with tracking and hunting. You've got to do it without me. She's got to completely let them go. And that's what letting the too good mother die. And it is. And the wolf mother knows that some pups are going to be more interested in going out for themselves. Just like with anyone, okay, there are bold and there can be bolder people, more arrogant, more confident people that are willing to go out and set out and trek out on their own. But then there's some that had felt like they were too safe. They were like, I just want to stay here in the nest, in the den, and I don't want to hunt. You hunt for me, And there's all kinds of people in the spectrum there. But the wolf mother knows that if I had a runt, let's say, of my litter that wanted to continue to just stay with me and let me do all the work, she would have to be almost vicious to that pup to get them to just go. She would hurt them even. There's what we would say is cruel, but it's not cruel. She's just letting that pup know, I'm not going to always be there for you. Okay. A hunter may come tomorrow and shoot me. You got to know what to do. You got to know how to protect yourself. And so what some might say, or even the too good mother would say, that's cruel. Okay. It's not. It's survival instincts. And most mothers know how to teach and how to let go. In a human, I think why she mentions this, Estes, in the book, is because human mothers, we don't have this relationship to primality anymore. We have such a relationship with our children, and it could be that their adolescence and teenage years span so many years, like think 20 years, we're taking care of them. That's a long time compared to other mammals. So it could be that we have this relationship with our children, this overprotecting, want to do everything for them, not really wanting them to leave the nest because we had such a long time doing it for them. So I guess that I don't know, that makes a little bit of sense to me. Anyway, okay. So we had to let the mom die. Second task is the step family, I believe. Let's see. Just I'm making sure that I don't have any highlighted parts that I wanted to read out to you guys. The second task is exposing the crude shadow. Okay. The bad, rotten step family. Okay. So the step family represents the jealous, exclusionary, because they exclude Vasilisa a lot through jealousy, manipulation, all that. And they exploit her nature of they exploit her in a way that she allows it. Okay. Because again, she's very naive, very innocent, thinks the good in people, thinks good of the world, not just people, thinks good of the world, and hasn't really encountered hate, I believe. That's what this step family is like it's like an initiation, first initiation really, into the world can be cruel. The world can be mean. That it can exploit you. And so anyway, that's the step family. Okay. We must acknowledge those parts of ourselves becoming, this is the predator. Back to chapter 2. Okay. If y'all are familiar. In chapter 2, the Bluebeard figure represents the predator that lives in our psyche. It's been there since birth. And when we encounter it, we sometimes become subservient, submissive to it, because we feel like, okay, well, you've been there forever. You know what you're doing. We kind of allow the predator to become our too good mother, especially if we had a mother that, like if we're not tethered in a way to our mother and our psyche, then that we kind of shift and imprint that a little bit to the predator archetype that lives in our psyche. That's the step family. Okay. And we have to acknowledge that these parts, this predator, and I think another archetype she mentions is the stranger, which I believe we'll get to. We can become like Vasilisa. We can become subservient to these mean, cruel figures in our brains, in our minds, not brains, our minds, through people pleasing, I think. Through people pleasing, through thinking the good, thinking, if I just do this one more thing, if I just do this one more thing, they'll like me. They'll do this. They'll be better to me. They'll act better towards me, right? And not really knowing, okay, not really knowing how to give an ultimatum in your own brain, how to give an ultimatum to your psyche, I think. So ST speaks of the aspects being part of Vasilisa's conditioning. She's getting conditioned by the world, all right? And I believe largely that this could be the superego. The superego, the step family being the predator, but also a superego as well. But I don't know. I don't know. Because the superego acts like an overlay over the ego. And so sometimes when we think we're acting out in an egoic, when we act out in egoic ways, we don't know that the overlay, the superego, the overlay has been placed there by the mother, by the father, by the guardians, by people who you've been relying on instinctually. And then the strangers overlay on the superego as well in this form of the step family. So it could be that relationship with superego that they're trying to overlay her by telling her what she is, who she is. You're going to do this because we know that that's who you are. When Vasilisa, to me, should have been like, wait, you're a stranger. You don't know me. How are you convincing me that I'm X, Y, and Z when you don't know me? So, but again, that's me. All right. The crude shadow. I like how she says that. So anyway, like I said, I believe that Vasilisa gets imprinted because she's essentially wants to still remain tethered to this family unit. She still wants she wants this stepmother to replace her mother in a way that will allow Vasilisa to rely on this new mother's instincts. But the new mother doesn't want nothing to do with her. The stepmother, right? Doesn't want anything to do with her. So it's like, okay, I guess I'll just do what you say. I'll do what you say. I'll be who you want me to be. I'll be who you tell me to be. I will allow you to treat me this way because I envision you as my new mother, the all too good mother, but this mother is not good to her. So she's like, well, okay, I'll just do whatever to please you. It's a people pleasing thing. I think, again, the step family as an imprintation on Vasilisa and this mother, too good mother archetype represents you being stuck. Because when, say, we take away the mother archetype in a way that we're letting it die, okay? And we've done certain things in our psyches in forming this relationship with intuition, we have essentially let some things die, but then we hit a wall. We hit a wall. We hit something. We're faced with a situation, faced with someone else. Again, like the step family, we're faced with something that we're like, wait, I was on the right track, but I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. And when you hit that wall, you become sort of stagnant. And then that is where the imprintation happens. You're stuck there in between what Estes calls the predator archetype and the stranger archetype. It's the predator because the too good mother isn't there to tell you. So this archetype in the psyche that lives there, you're like, I guess you become my new mommy. You start suckling at the mother that is the predator, and that's not always good for you. Not always. Okay, there is some things good about the predator, but refer back to chapter 2. So you're kind of stuck suckling at the predator archetype in your psyche, and then you're faced with a stranger. The stranger being this new family, these new instincts and intuition you're faced with it. You're like, do I listen to them or do I not? Now, if you want to go back to where you were, because you want to be safe, you want to be overprotected, you want to be staying in this bubble, you latch on to this stranger. And it's this liminal time that you have to get out of. And that comes with a third task. The doll. Okay. Let's see. The third task, I thought I must have passed it. But here we go. Navigating the dark. Okay. Now this is where Vasilisa is going off in the woods. She's got her doll, and they're trekking through the dark wood. Okay. Excuse me. So it's darkness and the doll. The doll being, I guess, intuition. The doll, like I said before, is a talisman of little pieces, like a puppet. It's got some sort of tag locks in it that links it to the mother, to the too good mother. So there's certain parts of the doll that Vasilisa holds on to as, I still want to be tethered. I still want you to tell me what to do instead of me feeling it out. Okay. And I think too, she talks too about the doll being sort of numinous in a way, like our intuition, whether or not it's tethered to someone else, the stranger, predator, the too good mother, any of these archetypes, whatever, the doll itself as intuition, it's numinous itself. It's a lantern itself. So we're kind of following the lantern, the light in the dark. And we're learning through this trek through the dark woods. We're learning, I believe, we're learning about intuition in a total sense. We're still kind of tethered. We're still in this liminal space. We don't know what to do. We just know that this doll has our mother's essence, our too good mother's essence in it. We must listen to it. So let's just watch and see what it does. It's kind of like watching and learning. We're watching and learning what it does. Okay. And then as it's trying to trek us through the woods, going left this way, go left this way, meet this night, meet that night, and go, here's Baba Yaga. And when we listen to the doll, it is like a lantern. It becomes numinous for us. And just like numinosity, I believe that in the psyche, we are slowly unlocking and learning about what intuition actually is through the help of this talisman. So I wrote down that the doll unlocks the senses on bigger levels. So while we're still tethered to the too good mother and we're listening to someone else's instincts, we're driven by someone else's intuition, we don't yet know we don't have relationships to, oh, I smell, like if we refer to another tale, Hansel and Gretel, right? I don't believe they had a lantern or a doll. Okay. They were going off their senses. They were feeling their way through the thicket, feeling their way through the forest. And, they had, I think there was breadcrumbs or cookie crumbs, gingerbread crumbs. And They followed that, right? But then they were also using their other senses, and the smell being the biggest one, that they would know where to turn because it would smell sweeter this way. And they were like, oh, we need to go to this way because that's where the gingerbread hut is. So I think it's the same type of story. We're trekking through the woods. We have breadcrumbs going to the darkest part. There are breadcrumbs. And we must follow the breadcrumbs in a way that's teaching us how to get back out. But if you are oblivious, okay, if you're oblivious, I think you won't know. You'll be stuck again at the hut in the story, in the center of the labyrinth, the center of the wood, wherever you are, wherever you're trekking in the psyche, to these dark, shadowy places. You get stuck there because you didn't learn as you went. That's the whole point of the doll is, look, I'll shine for you. I will become this lantern for you, but you need to be paying attention. That's the whole rub. You need to be paying attention. And I think that it's good for us to have some sort of breadcrumb, some sort of light. But then we really need to be paying attention to where we tread so that we know once we're venturing in the psyche how to get back out, back to reality. So there was something I know I wanted to read here. Here we go. The dolls serve as talismans. Talismans are reminders of what is felt, but not seen. What is so, but is not immediately obvious. The talismanic numinosity of the doll is that it reminds us, tells us, and sees ahead for us. This intuitive function belongs to all women. It is a massive and fundamental receptivity. Not receptivity as once tutored in classical psychology, that is as a passive vessel, but receptivity as in possessing immediate access to a profound wisdom that reaches to women's very bones. Really, really liked that, okay? Because it teaches us about talismans and what they are used for and how we can use their symbolism in a way to get into the woods and back out. So now the fourth task is the hag, okay? Facing the wild hag, the Baba Yaga, okay? Now what this is, because she kind of talks in the third task of needing a good scare. We need to scare ourselves. We need our psyches, because I say this a lot on my channel. The brain cannot process that which it does not know. If we're ever going to form an untethered being to the good mother, if we're to form a relationship to our own instincts and essentially come up with them from an adult perspective, okay, a mature perspective, then we need a good scare. We need to place ourselves in situations that will allow this muscle to be worked out. So anyway, so for a good scare, Vasilisa meets with the fearsome and terrifying Baba Yaga, okay? Now it describes the hut, it describes the domain, it describes the knights in this task, and again, like with the talisman is seeing what can't be seen, what isn't intrinsically known. We're seeing the unknown, or the talisman sees the unknown for us until we can wake up ourselves. And we need the realm of Baba Yaga, this dark wooded place of this terrifying hag creature. We need her and her place in the woods to see to see what might not be what it seems. Sometimes we're faced with something that we kind of instinctually, intuitively know, well, that's not what it would seem. That's not what it looks like. what really is it? That right there. We siphon that, and we need that. The chicken, the hut on chicken legs that dances around, the skull fence that is lit up from the inside, like, how cool is that? Okay. There's inanimate objects that kind of float around telekinetically. And you're thinking, well, what is that? You're thinking, why are these things floating around like, doing work for Baba Yaga? They're inanimate objects, right? And I think they're all teaching us. Well, first of all, they're teaching us about magic, okay? And the almost real uninnocent relationship to magic. Every child knows magic, but it takes a certain relationship to your instinct and intuition to know real mature magic and otherness, like otherness in a way that seems kind of metaphysical, paranormal, supernatural, right? Even, but also other ways too. Okay. Otherness allows us to open our minds. That's it. When we're faced with otherness, when we're faced with, what was that? What was that? We're faced with that. It begins opening new synapses in our brains that we in turn want to form relationships with. And it becomes an open-minded and open-hearted relationship that we're trusting. We're beginning to trust as we're still in the first couple of tasks. The possibilities to help us form a relationship with otherness and magic. So, anyway, so we got to the hag, but we need her, right? We've just gotten there in the fourth task, and we're seeing the otherness, we're seeing the magic, we're seeing this terrifying creature. Okay. When facing the hag, it's almost like we're waking up to, we don't know her. It goes back to the stranger. You have to form a relationship with that which is not what it seems. So you may look at this terrifying creature as that is Baba Yaga, and you're thinking you could pass judgment on her, but it's that first kind of a thing, that first kind of niggling that wakes you up, that goes, yeah, but I don't know her. She might not be as terrifying as everyone says. That's the rub. That's the rub. We need her for that. We need the hag in any story for that. We need to be able to form our own intuition when we're faced with what we think is danger, what we think is otherness, what we think is kind of illusory. We can say, you know what? I'm going to find out about this. That's a mature thing. It's a maturity thing. Okay, then fifth task. Okay, I hope you're going along in your books with me as we do this. And excuse me, I'm going to take another sip of tea. I like tea. Let's see. Get to the fifth part. Serving the non-rational. So non-rational servitude. So this is where the hag, essentially, that we're trying to get to know on a more intimate level. We're trying to get to know her because everyone has passed judgment on her. And if we relied on someone else's instincts and someone else's intuition, we would be so terrified to even talk to her, to even go to her domain, that we need her for again, that we need her for us to wake up and go, you know what? I'm going to find out if she's really this and this myself. That's how you're going to wake up your intuition. But then Baba Yaga gives you stuff to do. She gives you some tasks. It's what this is, the tasks that the Baba Yaga, the hag, this terrifying creature we're trying to get to know on an intimate level is trying to get you to do, is spring clean your psyche. okay, which is a perfect metaphor for this time of year as we're filming this in March of 2024. So we're spring cleaning the psyche. She knows, the Baba Yaga, the hag, knows what she wants. She knows things. She eats and she knows things. That's the Baba Yaga. And the house, her hut, her domain is done. Sure, there's maintenance. There's always going to be maintenance. Okay. There's minimal maintenance because she knows where everything is. She knows what everything does. She knows what her little hands that pop out of nowhere do. And she knows who to delegate to. This is a maturity thing. The hag represents the maturity of a psyche. I guess in large parts, I believe that. So she's asking you to spring clean the psyche. And doing these non-rational tasks for me, okay, for the hag, she is asking Vasilisa to do these things because, again, just like the doll, pay attention. Pay attention. When doing these tasks, they're maintenance for my house. I know how to do these. I've been doing all these tasks for years. I know how to do them, and I know how to work smarter, not harder. You need to learn those things. But I can't just tell you how. You gotta get your hands dirty. And the hag, the crone, I'll say the crone too, crone largely for me, knows how to set you up so that you will have to get your hands dirty. You'll have to get your hands dirty. You'll have to do this. Okay. I'm not sure why, Blue. You know, kisses, but no, unless there's a reason. So anyway, moving on. So she only asked, she asked Vasilisa to do these seemingly innocuous tasks, to teach her, to pay attention and to do certain things for the psyche, to spring clean. Let's get rid of the trash. Let's decipher the good from the bad. That's what it is. That's what it is. We're getting rid of the bad while we're keeping the good. We got to keep the good. We got to keep that which we needed to know. We need to keep. I like how laundering as part of one of the tasks is a really good start to spring cleaning the psyche. We're washing it all out. We're really washing the clothes in a way that we're learning what has a stain. How, because when you do laundry, you got piles, you got whites, you got delicates, you got different things you've got to put in these piles. You have to learn how to do that with the psyche. So, she also talks about this, and I know we'll all know what this means, but it's like washing a favorite pair of jeans, right? That you say you have a favorite pair of jeans that if they're not Levi's, because Levi's don't wear like this. Levi's are good stuff. If you have a good pair of jeans, throughout the course of the day, they kind of get stretched out, right? Until by the end of the day, they don't fit as good. You've got to launder them. Then they become back to normal again. Funny, Levi's, I mentioned Levi's because it made me think of this when I did this. It made me think of this, that when I had a pair of Levi's that my dad used to tell me that Levi's specifically, the old type of 1980s Levi's, the good denim that they used to use back then, if you jumped into a pool of water, typically fresh water, because he didn't really know if it would work in salt water of any kind, but fresh water, if you got in and let with your jeans on and then allowed them to dry completely on your body, which is gross to me. If you did that, they would be perfectly formed to your shape. You never need another pair of jeans again until they become ratted pieces of crap. So I don't know. That's made me think of that story with my dad, how I can just picture my young dad falling in a lake and then letting that wet denim dry on his body so that they form to his shape. I don't know. It just made me think of that. How we launder to get stuff taut again. It's the same thing with the psyche. Things become too stretched out. We're relying on this and relying on this, not relying on our own intuition. Our own intuition is not taut anymore. We have to launder it. So I like how she did that. Then the next one, she's sweeping out. She's sweeping stuff out. It's a decluttering process. Is this next service that she's providing the Baba Yaga. She speaks of having a place and a time each day for contemplation. The sweeping out is a metaphor for just getting rid of the clutter. Okay. How we do that is through having some part of the day. For me, this is like parts of the day where I let my brain go off into daydreams. Same kind of thing. We must contemplate. We must have usually quiet time where we go inside. We go in. We turn in. We turn our eyes and go in. And we contemplate for a little while. That's what we do. And so the sweeping out is that. Contemplation. Yeah. What this is teaching us to do, these tasks that seem like domesticated works, right? Sweeping, laundering, blah, 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 sorting. Okay. We're doing these domestic tasks in a symbolism way to teach us how to do these things with our psyche. Okay. Not to mention the fact that when you're in the throes of domesticated works, washing dishes, doing laundry, or I won't say doing laundry, I'll say sorting laundry, sweeping, mopping, washing something. It's like having a rag with soap and water on it and scrubbing like cabinets down and stuff. When you're doing these, that's the time that most of us have to contemplate. Our brains wander, we kind of go unfocused, right? Like when I'm sweeping the floor, I'm like, you kind of go off in your head. That's the point. Do your day-to-day things, but allow your brain to wander. That will help clear the clutter out and keep your intuition and your relationship with your psyche taut. That's the whole point. So, Baba Yaga, like I said, being this elder crone with a well-organized psyche, is teaching us through these innocuous, domesticated tasks for us to know. She could tell us how to organize it all day. She'd be like, yeah, this goes there, this goes there, this goes there. Okay. She could say all this to us, but until we find out what it is that we do in our day-to-day lives, domesticated chore or not, some kind of chore we do on a day-to-day basis that allows for the brain to wander, that is teaching us when we do it ourselves, not when we're told to do it. When we're doing it ourselves, we're building a well-organized psyche. So, and then we have the kind of room. Once we organize things, we've got room to really dance around and really be like the house. Her house is well organized. It dances around, right? It would not have the room to dance around if her psyche wasn't cleared out of all the crap. I mean, another thing to think about here is sickness. When our psyches are overrun, it can cause lots of mental health issues, sickness issues, all kinds of stuff. I think another service that she provides the Baba Yaga is cooking. And that's typically another domesticated act. Okay. We're building a fire. We're burning with passion. We're using our words. We're finding what we truly love. Okay. Following our bliss, as Joseph Campbell would say, is one of those times that will actually aid us in forming a relationship with our psyche. We have to fire our passions so that we can cook up our ideas to feed the psyche, just like Vasilisa feeds her dog. We have to continuously feed the psyche by contemplation, laundering out the psyche, and then cooking up our ideas, cooking up what we've been able to manifest in contemplation. It all is linked. So, hi. Sleep out the cut. Yeah. Yes. It does. It holds more true. It means more to us when we do it ourselves. But that's what I'm like when we go back to the too good mother and letting her die. Okay. We don't want to do it ourselves. We want the hag. Okay. We want the hag. I love how Vasilisa in the story calls her grandmother, even though she's everyone's grandmother. She is the grandmother. So it's like we've had the mom. The mom wants to do it for us. The mom wants to tell us how to do it. The mom wants to tell us how to organize. And we've been listening to her, right? But then we really don't know what we would do in certain situations or faced with certain things in our psychic attacks. We don't know what we would do because the mom, the too good mother, wouldn't let us. The grandmother, on the other hand, and I'll even go one further, your paternal grandmother, okay, to really, because I have known a lot of paternal grandmothers in my life that are a little bit more, how should I say this, rough around the edges, okay? So, your dad's mom, your dad's mom, all of the grandmother figures that I've known that were paternal were more rough around the edges. But I will say, being the mom of boys, that's a thing. Okay. Boys will take it out of you to the fact that I will become a crusted old crone one day. So, yes. I will become a crusted old crone being the mom of boys. Okay. So, follow your bliss. Follow your bliss by laundering and clearing out the clutter. So, we're going on, keeping going because we're already on for an hour. Holy shit. Sorry. The sixth task. Okay, only a couple more to go because there's 9. Separating this from that. That's one of the last kind of a servitude things that Baba Yaga asks Vasilisa to do is sort the poppy seeds, the mildewed corn from the good corn. Okay, she's doing this like really crazy sorting. Okay, let me get to that place because I'm pretty sure I've underlined something. Oh yeah, now in this part of the tale, Baba Yaga requires 2 very demanding tasks of Vasilisa. The tasks are these: learning fine discrimination, like discernment skills. That's what this is. Separating one thing from the other with finer discernment. So while we were sorting the laundry, that's big piles of stuff. Okay. Now we need to really fine tune it, get to the very details of things that will again aid us later. Okay. So we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. And it says, observing the power of the unconscious and how it works, even when the ego is not aware. Okay. The overlying ego. All right. The pairs of hands which appear in the air is Baba Yaga's ego. It is actually telling us what those hands, the telekinetic hands, are doing. All right. More learning about life and death. Poppy seeds being death and corn being life. Great symbols for life and death. As we've seen with the other chapters, the life cycle is what we are aiming to know intrinsically. And I would even say life, death, rebirth. But I don't know. That's just me. Okay. STs might say it differently. So life, we're learning finer, more detail-oriented discernment skills with sorting out the corn, the mildewed corn from the good, and the dead poppy seeds with the good poppy seeds. But when we are looking at the seeds, the Baba Yaga knows the meaning of life, the meaning of death, and the meaning of rebirth. She needs Vasilisa to know those things too. She needs her to know the healing agents of each life, death, and rebirth. She needs Vasilisa to awaken to certain, the food for psyche. That's what this is. The food that we'll be feeding the psyche is in our discernment skills, is in the finer details. So I think that the powerful, detail-oriented sorting, that's kind of the last thing we would do to really organize the psyche, is helping us to know when to feed it, when to contemplate, when to do laundry. Okay, now I need to sweep some stuff out because it's getting I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting, the more shadows. Here's another thing that we don't really touch into here, but one surefire sign, in my opinion, that you've got a too cluttered psyche and then you need to do some spring cleaning with it is when you start noticing that you have shadow projections come out. Say that this only happens to you every so often, but you start noticing all the time. You're like, oh my gosh, I keep lashing out at this and lashing out at that. And these are shadow projections. That's probably one of the surefire signs for me to go, I need to daydream for a little bit. Okay. Sorry. Y'all gonna have to go do something yourself because I need to think about this and kind of do some shadow work probably. But clear out some of that clutter, clear out your mama's voice a little bit. Get back to you. That's what I would say. So, what did I write down? She's already cooked. Right. We already cooked. We're already learning how, once we contemplate, we have ideas. We're doing something with those ideas. We're acting out those ideas. So she's already cooked. So she's learned how to form and germinate ideas and manifest them. That was the cooking analogy. Now she must learn how to sort out which of the cooking elements she's learned how to use and be medicinal in a way for the psyche. It's the garden metaphor. What are we watering? What are we cultivating? What seeds are we planting? The ideas and stuff like that. So I would say that. All right. But then, okay. I'll say that the poppy seeds and corn are our medicinal psychic herbs, psychic seeds, if you will. Anyway. Seventh task is asking the mysteries. And like I said when I was talking about the story, Baba Yaga tells Vasilisa, ask me some questions. She comes to her at the end of all of her tasks and says, you know what? You deserve to know some things. Ask me something because I know it all, right? As La Que Sebe, the one who knows. Vasilisa knows now. You know what? If I ask you every single thing that I'm curious about, it'll just clutter up my psyche again. And I don't need that right now. I need to learn how to keep it clean for now. So I'm just going to ask you one or two questions and let it lie. Maybe I'll learn the rest of the answers later, but I'm not going to ask you everything because that's just going to clutter me back up. And I've learned not to do that now. That's the rub too. We've learned how to use discernment, how to use our curiosity that's going to benefit us. That's not going to just clog up our brains with things that we can't unlearn, can't unsee. Think about a time when you were younger and growing up or whatever, that you saw something, you're like, I can't ever unsee that. I can name a couple right off the rip. I'm not going to go into what they are. But I saw something a couple of times and I'm like, and maybe it gave you nightmares. Maybe it really made you think about the cruelty of humans. Maybe it really made you think of how final death can be and feel. A couple of times it made me think of those things. And I was a little too young, a little too naive to have seen them. And it did age me. It aged me. Think back to the things that you asked a question, and when you got the answer that you really truly felt was truth, you're like, I wish I could unlearn that. That right there is what the seventh task is. We're asking the mysteries of life. Okay. We're learning more about the wild nature and how it functions. Okay. In our day-to-day life, learning more about life, death, rebirth, but how we must have them all. But we're learning about the mysteries in a way that's still appropriate for us. That's not going to clutter our brain. She goes into the colors of the knights, the white, red, and black knights. I'm calling them knights. They're just men on horses, or shades on horses, or whatever they are. Black is fertility, night, womb, darkness, the dark in which things germinate. That's the black horse, or the black knight, I'll say. Black is a promise that you'll know what you didn't before. It's the void, right? It's like the unmanifest. Red is sacrifice. It's rage, it's killing, it's arousal, it's dynamic emotions, it's really heightened emotions. That's what red is. And that teaches us that it's a promise of something is rising. That's the promise of that, because each one of them holds a little promise. Okay, that's what Baba Yaga is teaching Vasilisa here about the nature of these nights. Essentially, life, death, rebirth, day, night, and what? Day, night. I wrote it down. Oh my gosh, now I don't know what it was. Day, rising sun, and death. I'm sorry. Day, rising sun, and death. White is newness, pure of spirit. It can also be the color of death. In a lot of cultures, it's the color of death. It can also be the color of death. And as the dead lose their coloring, you become whiter, right? So anyway, that's the promise. White is a promise of things that will begin anew. Life, death, life. And how the Baba Yaga, as La Sebe, is the one who knows it all. She knows the mysteries. Okay, we must grasp the rhythms of these cycles in age-appropriate wisdom bouts, so that we're not cluttered up in our psyche. We're not learning things that will give us nightmares and not be able to function. And we're allowing the psyche to contemplate these mysteries. Each cycle holds wisdom, and when we learn them too quickly, we age. It ages us in a way. Our innocence shreds like a claw through silk, okay? It shreds as we learn things. I believe even further, in further finer discernment, it shreds as we learn things that we're not ready to learn. That's the rub. So, the 8th task. 2 more, okay? The 8th task, standing on all fours, okay? Back to the wolves metaphor, all right? Taking on the power bestowed on us, gaining new perspectives, right? That's what's happening here. Having now, through serving the Yaga, created a capacity within herself which she did not have before, Vasilisa receives a portion of the wild hag's power in the form of the skull. Some women are afraid this deep knowing via instinct and intuition will cause them to be reckless or thoughtless, but is an unfounded fear. That's why Vasilisa fears the skull. She fears the skull because she's like, wait a minute. Do I have too much knowledge? Do I have too much knowing now? She doesn't really know to trust herself with her newfound intuition, with her newfound relationship to her own instincts. She doesn't really know it yet. She doesn't trust it yet. So we're standing on all fours is standing on our own legs and knowing we shouldn't fear it. We shouldn't fear the Reaper. So standing on all fours. Yaga is repelled in this part of the story. She's repelled by the blessing. Only because she is on the other side of the spectrum from the Too Good Mother. So Vasilisa kind of gives her a blessing from the mother. Like, hey, here's a blessing from my mom. As she's not here to help me and you are. And the Yaga's like, I don't think so. And at first you're thinking, why didn't she want the blessing? Everybody wants a blessing. But it's because they're on 2 different sides. And the Yaga knows that if she took that blessing, she has the capability of going back to being the Too Good Mother. Of going, you know what? The Too Good Mother still makes a lot of sense. It still makes sense to be safe and overprotected and to retie the apron strings. But I'm not going to, because I'm smarter than that. I'm not going back. That's what Baba Yaga. That's why she's so. Anyway, it says, one of the quotes is that I wrote down, although sweetness can fit into the wild cannot long fit into sweetness. She's become too wild to go back into that box. She's let herself out of the box. Why would she want to go back in? That's why she doesn't want the blessing. The skull, this was weird. The skull is of ancestral wisdom to carry around. The skull being a carrier of the soul in some stories, as like the eyes being the windows of the soul, things like that, right? She's been given the relic of this skull that's lit on this stake, okay, like a lantern, that the doll was before. It's a relic of not just the Two Good Mother and Hag, but all the mothers that have come before. This struck me as weird because it's like the doll was just that, not weird, cool, weird, okay? The doll was just Vasilisa's mother. It was just Vasilisa and her mother and their relationship and how they were tethered together, woven together and intrinsically, right? But the skull is a matrilineal, all the mother's wisdom, not just Vasilisa's mom. This is all the mothers. And we notice that she doesn't use the doll to get out of the woods. She knows how to get out. She's not even using the skull. It's because it's not a lantern to get her out. It's a lantern. It's a coal lantern for the light of the fire for family. And with this knowing and with this fire, she knows how to get out of the woods. But she's got all the mothers at her back now. She knows how to get out of the woods. She knows how to get back home. Okay. This is an intrinsic thing. And then she doesn't have to use a doll because she's woken up her intuition. And like I said, she's a little afraid of it. But I think because she still kind of wants to be tethered to just her mom. She doesn't want everybody to have her back because she's like, that's a lot of pressure. Probably she's thinking that's a lot of pressure. Y'all are all on my back. But she learns, you know what? I need you. And that's, so we're getting toward the end. That's the rub. Okay. So the ninth task, the last task is recasting the shadow, recognizing and reacting to the negative aspects. Okay. Because before, when she faced, we're back home now. Vasilisa's home now, facing the step family, right? Still mean as shit. All right. But we're facing it with our newfound relationship with our own psyches, right? We see it different. We're woken up and we're like, God, why did I ever think there was good in you? Or something along that nature, right? We have to recast the shadow that the step family put on us as the super ego. So the voices of the stranger and predator, going back to that, excuse me. They're going to try to talk you out of both the predator and the stranger. Stranger is kind of representing the step family here. The ones that don't know about Vasilisa, but think they do. And Vasilisa thinks they do too. Out of love, not hate. So anyway, there's a lot of bad things there. They'll talk you out of owning this power that you seem to have now. So she has this skull, right? And the step family's like, what is this? This is not good enough. This is not this. This is not this. Not this, right? They're trying to talk her into the fact that this power is not real, not satisfactory. But Vasilisa, having grown this, done the laundering, done the clearing up, she knows that it is. She knows that it is. And this light that has our back, that is all the mothers, ancestral peoples that have our backs now. When we form our own intuition, is, I believe, a little bit, it helps us to perceive things from now on, that which we didn't before. I think that the attitude Vasilisa came into the woods with was complacency, and she comes out with sovereignty, a type of sovereignty. And the Skullfire watches and keeps the negatives in the consciousness consistently. It's this fire that we have that's an internal in the soul, because it's soul, right? The soul, the skull is soul. I like how she talks about choosing friends and lovers. Choosing friends and lovers. Let's see. Choosing friends and lovers wisely to prevent people having power over us that could send us back to the too sweet mother or the too sweet maiden that she was, not trusting or knowing herself. Right. That when we are really watching something, right? Like, say that there's a negative aspect, and at first we're like, okay, I'm gonna watch you for a while, because you have a tendency and a capability of projecting some spew out your crap. Okay, if I let you, I'm gonna watch you for a little while, and then as you watch it, as you become conscious to it, it just fizzles out, because it knows that you're not giving it power. That's the rub too. It knows you're no longer going to fuel that fire, because that's the skull's job. You're not going to allow the negative aspects in your psyche to have any kind of power over you. You're not subservient to them any longer. So, exactly. Okay. The way to maintain, here's a quote from the book. The way to maintain one's connection to the wild is to ask yourself, what is it that you want? How many times? Okay, I know this is probably a woman thing. Can with me, I don't know, can sometimes. Where someone's like, hey, what do you want? And then you're like, I don't know. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? You become like those vultures in Jungle Book, right? And you're really, what you're trying to do is get them to make the decision for you, so that you're, one, not having to make that decision, but number two, not, once you've made a decision, you've got to be held accountable for that decision. You don't want to do either. That's the too good mother, the too good maiden that you want to be. You don't want to make the decisions, and you don't want to be accountable for your actions or words. Okay. And it takes that mature psyche, cleared out psyche, to go, you know what? I do want this. I don't want what's just, like, I think that was in this book. Maybe I read it somewhere else, but there's like a smorgasbord of food, right? And you're like, man, all this looks delicious. I guess I'll choose this and this. When really you're craving something that's not even on that smorgasbord. You're craving something that's not even on that charcuterie board. Go after that. That's going to teach you some stuff. And I think that's what the last task is. We have to recast that shadow. We have to know what we want, go after what we want, no matter if there are things in our psyche that are telling us, well, here are your options. No, honey, you got all kinds of options. You've got all the options. You just think. You've been led to believe that you only have 3 options. Okay? Make decisions based on what you crave and what you need, instead of what you see in a display. I thought that was really interesting when she talked about that. Okay. So we have to strengthen our connection. That's the last task when we're recasting the shadow. And choosing friends, choosing the people in our lives. When she talks about this in the book, she's talking about choosing people, your kindred, choosing people to be in your life that are holding you accountable for you and allowing you to be you instead of relying on them. And because you might have some people that are in your life, even a parental figure or guardian that wants you in their life because they want to continue to do things for you. as the too good guardian that you have in your psyche. But you can choose people that want you to be your own person, you to have your own mind, clap when you do things good, tell you that you're doing something wrong when you are. You need people like that. You need people on your side, not on top of you or below you. I think that was cool too, as the last task. The wild woman is the one who dares and who creates and who destroys. And has to hold accountable for all the things she does. She is the primitive and inventing soul that makes all creative acts and arts possible. So, bloom and birth what the soul calls you to create. Let die what must die. Encourage your wild cycles to flourish. And shut off the ego every once in a while. And contemplate and form ideas that are yours. That will help you form a relationship with intuition and initiate you into knowing your own psyche, your well-organized psyche better. That's it. Okay. Yes, ask within. Now, and knowing intrinsically too that you have the ancestors at your back. You already know that because you've done all the things, you've done all the tasks, right? To know this, to know that, and you know this stuff, and you formed this relationship. You know how to ask yourself for advice, not relying on someone else. So, how has reading this book changed you and your witchcraft? Good question. First of all, going through it like this, chapter by chapter, instead of just a bibliomantic tool talisman that I've been using for the last 5 years, typically because of what the subtitle of this book is, it is allowing me to get back in touch with my wild self. I've always had a relationship with my wild self. I am a wolf within. I have been my entire life. I have been what I will call a feral girl. I have always been feral. And I mean this in the roguish sense of the word. And so when I started my witchcraft practice, I knew that there needed to be aspects of it that were wild in nature and that were feral in nature, that were reflective of nature and other animal people and thing times in the animal kingdom. And when I noticed that this is not the only book, okay? I want this to be said too. This is not the only book that goes into the wild nature, the wild woman, the wild person. This isn't the only book that does that. There are a couple of other books, and I might leave the resources for you in another video, that go into how to cultivate a relationship with the wild self, okay? But this is, I guess, what I would say is the first one. Reading this has helped my witchcraft because it allows me to learn how to use myth, story, symbols, and certain tools. I'll extend it to certain tools to get in touch with self-analysis. I hope that answered your question. Yeah, it's just it's one of those books, and there might be several in your life that you go back to the shelf. You go back to the shelf and you look up and you're like, I just want to read this. I just flip to something and read it. It's the way that Estes breaks. First of all, I love Estes' ability to break down a short story, okay? A couple of paragraphs of a story and breaks it down in a way that helps us form relationships with our own psyches and our own wild nature. And a beautiful way, hence the name of the book, that she mirrors us with wolves, or the wild woman with wolves. I think this also just starting this year, reading this like cover to cover in this type of a way that I'm reading it, and it will become almost like a year and a day kind of a thing. It'll become an initiation in and of itself for me, has excited me that I will form relationships and base new relationships and old relationships off what I've read here in an initiatory capacity. Ooh, thank you for the book recommendation. Marlo Morgan. And we're clearing out. So if anyone's here, I've essentially done. So right now I'm just going to take this and kind of finishing up doing some little things. Okay. So thank you all for coming. What was this called? Mutant Message Down Under. She has another one called From Forever, which might be an extenuing. Huh. Okay, I appreciate this. I love this. And like I said before, I might go into some books that were linked for me with the wild self. But anyway. Also, if you're in my Discord, I'm currently mapping out a spell for tomorrow's full moon that I might share with my Discord peeps. Don't know yet. It might be really personal, but I'm going to be venturing to Baba Yaga tomorrow night during the eclipse. And as this is spring, we're spring cleaning the psyche. I'm going to do some things with venturing to Baba Yaga, and I'm going to figure through personal gnosis. I want her to give me some tasks. So that's what my vocation witchcraft thing is going to be tomorrow for the full moon. I might share that spell and incense blend with you guys in the Discord. I don't know. I might. But anyway, go venture in. Tomorrow's the full moon, March 25th, 2024. Full moon, penumbra, lunar eclipse. Perfect time for divination, getting in touch with the psyche. I'm going to be spring cleaning the psyche with a ritual for Baba Yaga venturing to her hut in the woods. So I hope you all had fun. Of course, this will be up on YouTube forever to come. If anyone missed it and wants to go back and, watch some thoughts on chapter 3, the next time we will be visiting with one another is April 28th for chapter 4. So I hope to see y'all then for chapter 4. Let's get started reading now. And that's it. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Much love, people.